And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and it's a joy to welcome back to the program my friend and yours, Tony D'Angelo. So, Tony, again, welcome back.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your kindness as always.
We are, let's have a freewheeling conversation. I enjoy Tony each week on Lee Elsey's radio program on Tuesday mornings. He's on from roughly 7 to 7:30, and I try to squeeze as much of that in as I can. And you always have an eclectic mix of topics, usually but not exclusively related to issues in the state of Connecticut. But I think I'd like to spread our wings opening tonight just a little bit with the recent ruling regarding President Trump in New York and his business holdings, and what impact that may or may not have, residual effects.
Well, first of all, good evening, everybody. I think New York is in for it because what that was yesterday morning on Lee's show. We were talking about the impact as far as the city and the message it sends, and that like our state, which now is benignly, there's nothing wrong in Connecticut, where our Governor Ned Lamont, the unaccountable, always says, but we're part of an ecosystem. We exist only because of New York, and all of a sudden now they've all become very quiet because, my question was on the radio and to the viewers and to you, Marty, is Connecticut, which we know to be business unfriendly, going to follow in the steps of New York? And or is Connecticut going to surprise us all and say, well, we're not going to be like New York. We're going to be friendly. We're going to be open and welcoming. And I don't think there's a great chance of that happening. But that all said, I think for the region, we've caused, or they have caused a tremendous taint. And the taint that they've caused is also spreading almost to the idiocy of things. Earlier today, Tish James, the Attorney General of New York, said, well, I'm going to put a lien on Trump Tower. Trump doesn't even own that building. It's a condominium building. He may have the naming rights. He might have some part of it. But, so if I were a unit owner in that building, let's just say I finally got somebody to buy my condominium, and it's like, okay, we're going to contract, and let's get our title insurance. And then title company says, well, what's this lien here from the Attorney General? Oh, you can't sell your apartment. Do they realize the damage that they're doing to really what was a great business city for years and years and years and years? And I ask myself, how can New York sustain itself without being open and welcoming to business, or at least making it a place where business people come and can exchange? You've completely tainted that. So they're going to sneeze, and we're all going to catch pneumonia right where we're sitting here in New London, Connecticut. We'll feel it.
Well, and Connecticut, and Fairfield County in particular, is an extension of New York.
With Connecticut, itself. How many casino customers come from the greater New York metropolitan area?
Well, how many people who are employed in New York City take Metro North into Grand Central?
Well, for sure.
Out of primarily Fairfield County.
For sure.
Like I say, that's where the extension of New York is.
That was the ecosystem, and they've made things incredibly unfavorable. And there's a problem when, and I put it this way, when it comes to Donald Trump, I'm right down the middle. I love the policies, his administration, and some of his personality things. I make me somewhat uncomfortable. But that all said, the man has functioned for the most part extremely well in the office of President of the United States. Not perfectly, but well. So I feel a lot better with him there than I would with right now President Pudding Brain. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
I think you and I concur on that. I was asked recently by a good friend. I think hoping that I would attack leftist election cyclists. I can't. they've moved too far to the left.
Well, yeah, and I think that when you get to Trump, to your question, I think that like a business person, Kevin O'Leary yesterday said it perfectly. Mr. Wonderful, he's now on Fox TV as a commentator, and never been one of my favorites, but the guy is sharp as a tack. He said, I was really thinking about doing something in the state of New York with regard to real estate. There's a lot of building money and infrastructure money. We passed it on the way over here. He's like, I'm not going to go near the place. And how many other people are thinking that? Because they're thinking, now they're in moral judgment land. It's like, well, how much more upright am I than Donald Trump? And it's like, they don't want to make that comparison, nor should they have to. And when you elevate things to that degree, it's just, and the people running the state have no idea of the damage that they're causing.
Well, the governor was over in New York State was quoted. I'll paraphrase. More of a, well, it's only for Trump, but not for anybody else.
Well, that's just it.
I mean, who are you kidding? I mean, now that you've opened the door, I mean, you can't bring the horse back in.
It's the equivalent of a teacher who has like kids in a classroom in September, and she's like, I'm going to make an example of the first kid. So the first kid that steps a little bit out of line, they, of course you can't do this anymore. You get the ruler out, slap, punch, hit, principal's office, drag him up by the collar, and then the teacher comes back and smiles at the rest of the class and says, you'll be just fine if you don't act like him. It's not going to be a good scene, Marty. It's something that I think is, when cities, America could not function but for its cities, because you needed the cities to spread everything out to, and there was where the capital would go from place to place to place. Now I think computer networks have deluded us to think that, we don't need the cities anymore. We can just work around without it, but you still need that functional engine to drive things. Maybe you don't have to go into a city 5 days a week to work, but yet you need what's happening in the city to make what you do relevant, and hopefully you can get paid for it. So that's, and it's, we're hurting it over and over and over again.
And will there be, stratified fallout as well? I mean, we were discussing earlier, such as, will truckers and deliveries, will we see issues there coming into the city? Slowdowns, boycotts,
well, look
et cetera.
Manhattan is an island. It is there is no land access to Manhattan. You must get there by some kind of a bridge. Now,
bridge or tunnel.
Right, bridge or tunnel. And there are I think it's 11 bridges and tunnels. Now, that's not a hard thing if trucks wanted to just stop and boycott. There's little bridges like in the northern end of the island, like the McCombs Dam Bridge going from the Yankee Stadium grounds to Manhattan. That's like a little walkway bridge. You drive the 3rd Avenue Bridge, I think a couple of the Madison Avenue Bridge, and they're like very informal kind of arteries. Most people coming in from out of state don't know that they exist, but it's not really hard to shut that city down with a truck strike. And it's given how well the New York City police departments performed as of late with certain things, it's going to take a while to get these trucks out of there.
Well, who'd want to be a cop right now?
Well, that's just it.
In New York, with the overwhelming.
And I don't mean to get angry with the, with the police department, but New York
I'm not angry with them as much as with what they're having to put up with. I mean, getting beat up by
migrants.
Yeah, I mean, it's
nuts.
This is not the United States of America that I grew up in. It is not.
Well, where was it I was seeing? I can't recall. It was a hotel, a midtown hotel, and there was the entire thing was taken over by, and people say, well, was it migrant or legal? I'll say migrant illegals. They are not legal residents. And The hotel management doesn't care because
They're getting paid.
they're getting paid. That's just it. It's the hotel operator's dream. 100% occupancy, cash on the barrel. I don't care who's there, you know.
The rooms are filled.
The rooms are filled. So here you are. You want to go in and spend a weekend in New York and see a Broadway play and go to Lincoln Center, and you want to go to, you know, maybe a sporting event and go to the Metropolitan Museum. They don't care about you. You know, it's like, you know, big deal. You come down once a year. This is money, and I think we're just doing incredible damage to society, and the political class is enabling it.
Well, but it emanates from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in D.C.
Yes, it does.
And
yes, it does.
I'm praying that the Republicans don't stub their toe and allow the Democrats to turn this illegal alien issue into being a Republican issue as opposed to where it is. It emanates from the White House and aided and abetted by sanctuary cities and states, which are all Democrat.
Right. And don't marvel not if you see coming down to the stretch, you'll see cities start to get cleaned up a little bit. You'll see crime start to get enforced a little bit. You'll see other things, you know, perhaps some of the political fraud that we see and some of the ballot stuffing. You might see a couple of people called to account for that just to say, okay, well, the system works, and it works because Democrats are in charge. And what they're really doing here is a sight gag when that happens. But that, because people's memories are very short term, it's like, well, look at what they did. I mean, they straightened out the whole mess in 2020 when Trump was president. And they gave me money to pay my student loan, too. I mean, why wouldn't I want to vote for him? Oh, God help us all.
Well, this is the guy who can't walk up the stairs into Air Force One. I mean, he stumbled up yesterday, I believe, and this is the short set of stairs. Oh, my goodness. Well, I also wanted to just delve into it as while we're dealing with national / international topics here as we've opened. There's a piece in this morning's paper, the day paper that is here on the shoreline, by Chris Powell, who's a syndicated columnist. I don't know if he still functions out of Manchester, but that's where I remember him many years ago. But the headline is "Murphy's Pork is Inflation and the U.S. Wrecks Ukraine." And I know you've had an opportunity, I think, to look at these, and I mean, it's just I think this guy's brilliant. I mean, he's just so spot on, and he cuts through to the chafe and calls it as he sees them.
Yeah, it's he'll write articles that really no one, you know, shall we say, in the press is really in the corporate press is writing, you know, and they're interesting. Yeah. He does give you a very interesting perspective. I do read them.
Yeah. Well, this piece that's in this morning's paper regarding the inflation, this is where a difference between, you know, philosophically between Democrats and Republicans. Where Murphy, whose idea of national security is to have border control agents wave across 5,000 illegal entrants per day, quite apart from the hundreds more who sneak into the country out of sight, has another great idea. He calls it Connecticut Fund Finder, an interactive map on his office internet site that allows constituents to track the $4.2 billion, with a B, worth of projects in the state that have been financed by federal government money. Well,
this is a clean broadcast, right? You want me to keep it clean? Yes.
Well, it's a family show. Let's put it that. Let's put it that way.
Gotta be nice to the folks.
And Murphy's quoted as saying, "I'm really proud that we've been able to bring in the billions of federal dollars back to Connecticut." The senator says, Powell writes, "But bring back, isn't right." For most patronage pork for which Murphy claims credit, items not part of the federal government's ordinary operations, has been financed, not by taxes drawn from the senator's constituents, but from deficit spending.
Well, that's just it.
Borrowed money, as they call it.
And the projects are, how can I put it? The United States Senate's summer job for years and years and years and years is, we're going to have economic development, so we're going to pave every single road known to mankind. We're going to pave it with the cheapest crud possible, so this way we can come back and do it again. And we don't care if you're late for work. We don't care if you're stuck in a jam on your vacation. We don't care about anything other than the fact that we are bringing economic development, because the politician's eye is, well, I'm causing this project to happen, but yet it's a short-term impact. It benefits a limited number of people. It screws up millions more people, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is great. Let's do it again and again and again. And I've never understood why we can't have a system like Germany, where, when's the last time the Autobahn was paved? They pave it with really good stuff, and they go about their business, and they don't screw up the population for quote unquote government projects.
And that's why there's no speed
that we
limit
pay
there.
for, Marty.
Yes, but the Autobahn has no speed limit. You can
Go as, yeah.
and you can feel comfortable. You're driving on a road. You can do that,
Exactly.
and not have an axle get broken as you're
Right.
or lose a tire because you're going through potholes. But so I mean, the infusion of debt helps to fuel inflation, which is what we've been seeing for the last 3 years. I mean, I saw in the news last night. I mean, in Trump's first 3 years, he had I think it was a low 7.1 or 2, the inflation for 3 years, and Biden's up pushing 18%, 3 times as much, and you see that on the basics. I mean, when you go to the grocery store, when you buy your eggs or your meat or whatever, your bread and your staples, and I mean, this is something that John Q. Public feels it and sees it literally.
What they don't understand it, they don't want to understand it, they hope you don't understand it, is that when you raise the price of energy, fuel, whatever the fuel is, the fuel could be electricity, it could be petroleum, it could be whatever, everybody's costs go up exponentially. It takes you more money to get to a certain place if you're doing business. That phone, which the viewers can't see, that's plastic. That's a petroleum product. Everything goes up, so that food
Petroleum's
supply,
in almost everything.
Right. So that the example of yesterday, which I don't think I did as great an example of as I would like, is that if you make your supply chain expensive, that expense just filters in down the line to where the cost of something just becomes so incredibly high. And, but climate change has got to be ahead of everything, or, getting rid of fossil fuels, instead of saying, well, how can we make this a better world gradually? Because people have to get to work, people have to eat, people have to heat their homes, but, none of that really matters.
And the United States is not going to solve this issue singularly.
Oh, no.
I'd feel a heck of a lot more comfortable, and that there would be a higher degree of credibility with those who are promulgating this upon us.
Oh yeah, who cares about them, right?
If China and Southeast Asia and India and Russia were playing by the same rules at the same time as we are,
For sure.
and the population bases in that part of the world are significantly higher.
and
ours.
the concentration of people in areas is they don't have any room to roam whatsoever.
Yeah. So I mean, to take them out of the equation, I think is irresponsible. Much like I think Biden's energy policies have been irresponsible. When he took office, and when he's shutting down pipelines and oil production, I mean, to me that was irresponsible.
Well, and the thing is, I'm not a fan of the domestic automobile companies because going back years and years and years and years, going back to 2008, where they were propped up with government money, and 2 of the 3 really folded. It used to be, there was a time, and I tell this to people and they roll their eyes at me, that you could not find, you go to the bank today, right, and like whatever the bank gives you on savings, say they give you 5%. There was never a better savings investment than General Motors Acceptance Corp. They called it paper. It was a bond. And they would have terms. And you'd go on the train, you'd read, and it would say, well, GM has X amount of debt that they want to sell to the public, and they'll pay 2% over what you can get in the bank. And as solid as the day is long, what's good for General Motors is good for the country. And people saved a lot of money perfectly safe using GMAC paper. And they'd look for the offering, they do it again and again and again, until that last time when they couldn't pay the debt and they lost everything. And it was just this thing of, how could you be so stupid? I mean, you're one of the big 3, you can innovate, you could do whatever. You let these little upstart car companies like Toyota and Datsun come in, and, you laughed at them, and they were developing things and you still laughed at them. And, so it's like, I have no pity, I have no sympathy for people in the automobile industry. My brother was in it. And so it's like, when these people when Biden came and said, well, I'm going to give you, you're going to build e-cars, and we're going to have a Green New Deal, and you're going to get all these tax credits, and Americans are going to go, and they're just going to be licking at your chops for this stuff. They, Mary Barra had the eyes. Biden, when Trump hated Mary Barra, probably for good reason. Jim Farley at Ford, and not exactly a rocket scientist, they bought this thing. Now they can't sell the electric cars. Now they're like, well, what are we going to do? And, Biden is either, if he understood what he said, is nowhere to be found. I mean, and in the end, who's going to pay for these projects?
Which rental car company has had a fleet of electric
Hertz,
cars?
yeah. You can,
they're getting rid of them.
Do a tap dance on the hood. Here's your car.
We've got tens and tens of thousands of e-cars. Nobody wants them.
Nobody wants them. And the thing is, none of them, and I can understand with great restraint a politician not understand what I like to call Mr. Market. That's a term I borrowed from Larry Kudlow. I didn't make that up. Politicians have no idea of Mr. Market. But, I mean, you're the head of a freaking corporation, and you don't get it? I mean, it's like, and then when you screw up, it takes taxpayer money to bail you out. It's like, there's nice people here. I'm not going to start cursing.
The irony of that is, if we look back when Iacocca went.
Well, that was a man
with Chrysler, and
it sickened him to borrow that money. He didn't want to do it, and he went to Congress and he said, "Look, this is I'll pay you back every penny with interest. This is the most sickening episode in America."
And he did.
And he did.
Early.
Yeah. And he was a man with like zero tolerance for any kind of funny business whatsoever, and he got the job done.
And now, and it's not even that long ago. I mean, but Chrysler is basically it's all gone. I mean,
it's all gone. Yeah. Well, yeah. When Bob Nardelli, who ran Chrysler into the ground, comes on Fox Business and gives his opinion, I'm like, you haven't legislated this guy out of existence yet. It's just like, But I mean, but the Chrysler car doesn't. They don't make Chrysler anymore. I mean, the Chrysler name. Right.
I mean,
it's Stellantis. It's it's something.
Yeah. Folks, you're watching City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm joined tonight by my friend and yours, Tony D'Angelo. And we're having kind of a free-form conversation on a number of topics: politics, economics, business.
You name it.
State of Connecticut, national, international. If you'd like to contribute or participate, please feel free to give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. And the number is up on the screen at 860-440-3154. I've got to, love this too. I mean, this again is in this morning's newspaper. We've got Congressman Joe is calling for affordable online access, and he wants everybody to, get free internet. And at what point does it stop? I mean, who's going to pay for all this stuff when everybody's getting things for free?
I struggle. I mean, because doesn't every kid in, I don't care what economic bracket, you have like a phone, you probably got like a little MacBook or something. You've got, the schools will give you a computer, from what I understand, or an iPad or something to use. And now we need a government program for internet. I mean, it sounds like, I don't know, something you could employ your uncle with or something. I just really don't.
I didn't print out
your uncle, your nephew.
The comments from the day. I did print out this article. It's written by Elizabeth Regan. But one of the persons who commented on it, I thought put something rather astute in that, a number of years ago when TVs were new, and you wanted to watch the World Series, they didn't have a clamor to give everybody a TV.
No, they didn't.
Or perhaps when color TVs first came out, well, let's have the government provide everybody with a color TV. Or perhaps a telephone. When telephones first came out, I mean, these were revolutionary changes. But we didn't look to government
or cellular
provide them to
phones.
everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, years and years ago that we'll buy our cell phones in the discount stores. And people would say, oh, that's not. I mean, now it's, we don't even think about it. That's where we get our phones. It's just the way things happen. And yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the thought of government when they see something, even though I think there's a better motive from their perspective behind it. But one of the things, we had covered this on a 30 with Tony video show, Jason Rojas, the majority leader in our illustrious House of Representatives, said, well, why don't we have an app so a public housing tenant, person can go to one app and plug into all the various things that they may qualify for. And, because after all, it's like a jump ball. You got how many agencies vying for the same thing? And I said to him, I said, look, he wanted $1.5 million. Why not make this a college project and like the kids that win get free tuition for something like that? I mean, number one, you question why you need it, but if you see there's a value for it, I mean, it's like the political system always looks to hand out money before they do anything else. And I think we're living the danger, but there's a terrible danger in that.
Yeah. Well, when the populace figures out, and we're at a point, this goes back to the beginning of our country, that figures out that government can give you things. Mm-hmm. The public will accept them, and then start demanding them, and want everything for free. And,
well, was that not Fordlandia, Henry Ford, where Henry Ford said, well, I guess this was in the 30s. I can, why don't I manufacture the whole car, down to the tires? I think he was friendly, I think, with Harvey Firestone Tire. Then I guess he wasn't, or he thought the prices were too high. I said, I can do my own tires, and I will get the rubber from, I think it was Brazil, somewhere, south of the border. And we're going to set up these plants where the native people can work and make tires out of the, out of the native materials. And we will feed them, we will house them, we will entertain them, we will have a, work utopia. When we, it's sort of like, I get nervous when I hear utopia, because this is like one of those historical examples of what happened to, and I think one night, one of the natives had a bad mood and got angry at the fact that they weren't serving the native culture. They were serving, steaks and salmon. And it was like, I don't want that, so let's have a food riot. And which ended up in the place being burned down and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it doesn't work. It's like, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is one of the things I have enjoyed on the History Channel on Sunday evenings. They've got running documentaries. They've been running the food that built America. They've had different industries that have built America, and the players and how things have evolved. And it's capitalism that's driving things. It's innovation and ideas and improvements. What people seem to forget, and the youth of America, this is what's frightening, because the youth is not grasping this, is that in a socialist, communist environment, I mean, you've got bureaucrats making these decisions, and they'll make the decision, well, we will have 10 of these. Well, why? Because I said so, as opposed to allowing the market to make the decision on how many we need and where they'll go and how much they're going to cost. And
that's government's sneaky way of passing laws without Congress, because I think the gas stove proposed ban, is a perfect example of it. You'll see our vice president cooking with her husband in her kitchen, and she's got a gas stove, and everybody will say, oh, look at the stinking phony. I don't think she has a clue that she didn't make that rule. That rule didn't go through Congress. That was something done by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Richard Trumka Jr., son of Richard Trumka, who was the Teamsters president, the angry guy that would come on TV that hated Donald Trump's guts.
Yep.
Well, his kids apparently know better. And he will make, they will make something in the federal regulations about there will be no gas stoves built, it didn't go through Congress and people didn't vote for it. But if that thing hangs around long enough, it becomes a law. And, we've all got to somehow deal with it. And that's the whole thing that, the bureaucrat basically is many times a worse enemy than your politician, because politicians come and go. This whole hubbub about Trump in jail and all. I mean, 5 years from now, Trump is not a concern of anything, if the man is even here. But the bureaucrat who is in an agency somewhere, they'll be there, and they're going to be there for 20, 30, 40, 50-year career, and they're going to be writing the rules to which the politicians, the Kamala Harrises of the world, they don't even understand them. They don't even, they'll hand them a speech and they'll go out and say something, but they're not the ones that are, they're not Bobby Kennedy, they're not Dwight Eisenhower. They're, actors for much of a better term.
We have to be careful with actors. Reagan's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Reagan was an incredibly bright man, though. He was an actor when there were no computers, there was no, you couldn't watch you had to learn that script, and you had to know, you couldn't be stupid about it.
Nope. And he administered things. I mean, he ran a state.
Mm-hmm. And Reagan was a policy guy. Whether you liked the policies, he was very clear in his policies, and he understood them and he articulated them. You might have hated them. I mean, I don't know how I would have felt if I was a kid in California and they took away my free college. But Reagan was very clear as to why he did it.
Yep. Well, I want to just take a step back into the realm that I think you're in your best comfort zone here, and that is the state of Connecticut. Referring back to the local paper again this morning, and the Port Authority, Lamont is promoting having the Port Authority being absorbed by the Airport Authority. Are you aware of that? And,
I did not read that.
And the Port Authority is pushing back. They don't think that's such a swell idea because I think they will lose some of their autonomy, actually a lot of their autonomy and authority and power that goes along with that. And when you look at, I would call the debacle at State Pier, which is also in the news again. How far and how hard will Uncle Ned push to see this effectuated?
I think that's, Marty, I think that's a multifaceted question. And it hinges on a lot of things being, the public, I believe, is told about the fiscal condition of the state and of surpluses that really aren't surpluses. They're kind of false surpluses measured off of an indicator, but nothing really, which is constructed, but nothing really substantively has been done to more or less address the systemic issues. And, like I said yesterday on the radio, the rot in the foundation. And Governor Lamont, I'll refrain from calling him the unaccountable. I've called him some names. The one thing I will not call him is unintelligent. The man is intelligent. He may not be as intelligent as you might want him to be on a lot of different things, but I think he knows how the bread is getting buttered. I think he also knows that there's not as much butter that's really there as opposed to what he's telling the people. That said, he's doing the same thing, as you allude to, with the pier, with the, as I say, the should-be abolished Department of Economic and Community Development, blending in this other thing called CT Next. In Connecticut, you need a scorecard to follow all advanced CT, CT Next, CT paves, CT does whatever, CT goes to the farm. I mean, it's so dysfunctional and mind-boggling when you look at all that. But he's looking to do the same thing there because CT Next did not get its bond. It's an entrepreneurial thing. And why didn't they get their bond funding? Easy. There wasn't the money to do it. So it's like, it's like the Desi Arnaz song. He's breaking his back, putting up a front for you, and that's basically that's the game he's playing. And it's because he's told the world this rosy picture, and of course you tell the regulators, and my bond rating is good, and if you've watched the movie The Big Short. It doesn't take much to get by a regulator, it really doesn't. And it's like, and the thing is, there are these looming huge liabilities. I mean, our pension liability is insane. And then there's these other mandates. I don't think anybody really understands how big they are because they just kind of come and go, or they're going to kick in at another time or something like that. And
as long as the checks are clearing, who cares?
Well, that's just it. And the state union isn't going to say, well, we see the needs in the state, and we're going to peel back. They're full steam ahead. To your point, where we begin the discussion, New York is under great economic stress. That's going to hit the region, and it's certainly not going to make Connecticut this wonderful magnet to where entrepreneurs are going to come and want to do terrific things. So guess what? No tax revenue. This is all happening right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lamont, and he's publicly stated, he looks at New York and California as kind of models that we as in Connecticut should be following. So I mean,
yeah.
and both of those states are well to the left of the curve,
And I
almost on everything. I mean, be it education, social issues, taxes, immigration, sanctuary city, sanctuary state, whatever it may be. Regulations to tighten the screws on how we live, and he looks at them as doing good.
I wonder if he himself,
eroding our personal freedom.
when he's lying in bed at night, probably with his head under the covers, if he really believes that himself. I mean, could he defend to his neighbor in Greenwich that having a transit-oriented development apartment between them is the right thing to do? Could he sign a bill in Connecticut that a municipality has the power to knock on your door and demand that you house a migrant, which I really believe is a 10th Amendment issue of the future. That's how botso these people are. I don't think he himself personally feels that way, but I think he does that because he's playing to the crowd, which I don't think his bones really get to that point. But and his earlier statements are really kind of diametrically opposed to where he's at right now. So it's just kind of I don't think he's. I think officially you're absolutely right. He wants to sit at the cool kids table, but not being a cool kid.
Touche. And there's also a couple of pieces that I'd like to just get your thoughts on.
Sure.
They're generated on local topics, but we can extrapolate them, I think, at the state level. One is a piece by everybody's favorite columnist of the day, David Collins, where New London has spent millions on sidewalks without regular competitive bidding. And this has been going on now for at least 10 years. And is that a healthy thing to be doing? And then we had a recent tragedy where a historic church collapsed, and the city jumped in immediately. And I would question the wisdom of that. And the mayor was in the paper the day after. Well, we'll never know what happened here. Well, of course, when you come in and knock it down,
there's no way of knowing.
We won't know. What was the rush? We could have cordoned this off, and there's been no insurance people down there. The city's into this for at least, based on current estimates, $250,000. And the mayor has filed liens, or had the city file liens on.
I heard that on the way down.
And so my question is, do you feel that is that a good government strategy at any level?
I don't believe. I mean, what I struggle with is,
especially with the church. I mean, that's
yeah.
It's not like you're going after your home. You didn't pay your taxes.
Well, that's just it.
I mean, this is
probably Letitia James wouldn't do that. I agree with you, but she wouldn't go as far as to do that. What I don't understand, and maybe I'm an idiot. Okay, I'll accept that. But what is so horrible that public information cannot be shared? Why does the public constantly have to fight for the right to know things? And the politicians play a poker game. And this goes on all over. Oh, Connecticut's a great example of that. You're a citizen, what are you doing reading the statute or the committee report or something like that? And it's like, well, it's part of it's because I really don't trust you. Not you, but, and the other thing is, I like to develop my own understanding of things. And it's like, it's what's so horrible where these things go on that the public cannot know. And when, to your point, you see something like that, and of course you're thinking, well, what's the deal here? Why didn't we see this? Why are we moving so quickly to do something which didn't have to be done? And there's just so many things like that. And
our government at all levels,
Yes.
is really designed not to move quickly. It's designed for debate and discussion and massaging and things of that nature before, and trying to find a middle ground before making,
Well, it's quote unquote
that
the
decision.
public good, and it's turned into anything but that.
You know. And again, like the going out with a particular public works project without bids. I mean, once you start waiving the bids for an extended period of time, you really lose sight of whether or not this is competitive or not. You don't know because there's nothing to compare it to.
Now, I suppose if I've been, doing things, not talking necessarily about City of New London, but if I'm in government and I've been doing things on knee jerks without bidding for a number of time, and it's like, well, let's have bidding. The first day of bidding is very nervous. I may be, because it's like, well, they're going to find out that, these projects could have been done for a whole lot less. And here I was, rubber stamping them all along.
So we've got, a number of things going on, and, well, we'll have to see how things percolate out here, but kind of what makes life interesting.
Oh,
I guess.
It's a very interesting age we live in.
Now, you were on Lee yesterday morning. What were your topics at hand with on the Voice of Freedom yesterday?
Well, yesterday's Voice of Freedom was what I called the true fiscal state of Connecticut, which I do not believe is what we're being told by, quote unquote, as Kitty Carlisle would say, the legitimate theater. We talked about that and how the Trump decision is going to have an incredibly negative impact on, Connecticut and the East. And the other thing we talked about is, the migrant at the door crisis, which is soon coming to your home. In Massachusetts, the city of Boston is going to the suburbs and saying, well, you have all this room, you have all this, why don't you open the door to these people and let them in and show what a good American you are? And I really think, Marty, that we will see, and you may think me crazy, but, the COVID emergency, which was for health and safety, and if we've got 10,000 migrant illegals in the streets who are doing God knows what and whatever, all Connecticut begins to look like the Kensington section of Philadelphia. It's like, well, health and safety, you've got to house these people. I mean, we're really kind of talking, they're two congruent horses. And I think a question that should be asked to every single Connecticut elected official, as I say, Democrat, Republican, German, Martian, Yankee, Red Sox, whatever, is will you come out right now and say that you either support or don't support the state forcing you or even asking you to host a migrant in your home? Actually, it's a two-part question. Will you be part of the asking, and will you be a part of the forcing? And don't let them run away with you, because some of the stuff I'm reading with some of the people in our house, our state house, what they're proposing for purposes of whatever you want to call it, migrant housing. I mean, is botso beyond belief. Maybe not quite to the level of Massachusetts, but again.
Well, listen, Massachusetts. I mean, around the Army-Navy game, in early mid-December. I mean, there were folks who had booked hotels months and months, maybe even longer, in advance in the greater Foxborough area for the ball game. Got bounced. Guess what? You don't have a room for illegal aliens. I'm going to call them what they are. I mean, they're not.
They're not legal. They're not legal.
They used to be called aliens. Now they're called migrants. But
and I think our governor, the unaccountable, has done a very good job of letting people not become alarmed with this, because he's been hiding the information by and large. Pretty soon the tall tale, the jig is going to be up, and then he will have to confront the public. And then we're really going to see what we're in for, which is what we've been in for all along.
Yeah. We have a call, guys. I'm not sure. We do. Good evening, you're on the air.
Two of my favorite guys.
We got a viewer.
So my question to two of the smartest guys I know, do you trust the 2024 election at the local level, state level, national level? And if not, what's your advice to everybody?
I'm not feeling very trusting, Lee. And as far as my advice, that's a really good question. I think you've got to watch that paper ballot from your hand to watch it get counted, and I've got to give that some thought. I don't know what you do. I think it's right now. I think as we're sitting here tonight, I think it's a horrific mess. I really have little to no confidence in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of people are the same way. I'm sorry, Marty.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I have been the moderator at the Nathan Hale School in New London on election day for three elections. Now, what transpires within the polling place, I feel comfortable that we're getting things done correctly and properly. But anything that transpires outside of it, I'm not a big fan of this early voting or same-day voting. I think any of that stuff is open for suspicion.
Yeah. Well, I think if we don't get that confidence back, I don't know. I don't know what the electorate, what the the actual everyday voter who has no confidence, doesn't think his vote's going to count. That's a travesty. That's tragic. It really is. But I just wanted to ask you guys that. I'm watching the whole show, man. You guys sound great. Marty, it's a great show. Tony, you're the man.
Thank you, Lee.
All right, listen, thank you so much for calling.
Boy,
All right.
that's $1 million question. I don't have an answer for it.
Well, the genie's out of the bottle. The thing
Yeah.
is, how do we get it back in, or can it be put back in? I don't think in areas where you've got the Democrats ruling the roost that it will, because they support this stuff. And I don't necessarily have confidence that the GOP, once it's out, that they've got the fortitude to do what they need to put it back in. And on that note, I got a note up here that says end the show. So we've run out of time. So we will take our cue.
I'm watching the cane come in.
So Tony, I want to say thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a pleasure to have
Thank you, everybody.
And we'll see you again next week on City Focus. Good night, folks.